All right, welcome to Blake Street Banter, where one of us knows what the word banter means and the other one is along for the ride. Noah, what's going on?
Hey, well, this is a little bit different. It's just me and you today, so we're gonna try to power through this. Hopefully, there's no mechanical flaws, and if there are, then hopefully the chat lets us know. But it's good to be back. Another week down of Rockies baseball. It wasn't a very good week, and we'll discuss that. But how are you?
Yeah, just like the Rockies, we're just gonna rough it here. We're just
Yeah,
gonna we're just gonna get through it. So, um, yeah, pretty tough week for our boys. There's only one highlight that I want to bring up, and it's probably the same one you want to bring up, which is the first ever pitch clock violation walk off. Um, I'm going to be honest with you, as a traditionalist and older baseball fan. I didn't really enjoy that walk off. Like it was good to win the game. Everything was going in our favor, but like I needed, I needed something. It to me, it felt like the payoff wasn't quite there. Am I wrong in thinking that?
no, I mean I'm with you. I was really happy we won, and it was the only win that we got this past week. The Rockies got, but it was one of those games where they again had blown a lead, and you're happy to win the game in any case when that happens. But the Rockies had hit four straight singles to score the tying run, and then had Ryan McMahon up there. I would have loved to, even if he hit a sacrifice fly or grounded out. Like, there's just a little bit more elation that comes with that. But the umpire pointing at home plate, I guess we had to settle for. It was interesting to be in the ballpark for that because no one really knew what was happening, but we reacted to the strobe lights going on. It was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, yeah, and that sounds like even worse of a payoff if I was a fan in person. Now, don't get me wrong, that was a really exciting inning because, as you said, there's four straight singles. Finnegan, who has been fantastic all year, and for some reason we were just able to get after him. And like, if you were watching that game live, that was really fun to watch. Like, just the build up, station to station, single hitting. Now, if you go back and watch the pitch clock violation, he calls it as Finnegan's delivering the pitch, and then the pitch ended up being a ball anyway, so it would
Yeah.
have been ball four. Even in that scenario, I would have preferred the ball four and a legit walk off, right? But the pitch clock violation was just kind of weird. And watching the players celebrate on the field was also a little bit weird because I don't think they really know like who they were supposed to, go give the Gatorade bath to, uh,
Yeah.
per se. It was really weird. And I think probably if anybody's watching live, the best part about that was McMahon's interview afterwards, where he talked about Topar and how, for lack of a better term, nice it is to play alongside him. Um, but like it was exciting, but like not exciting at the same
Yeah.
time. It's really hard to describe.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. And I did get to catch that interview after the fact because people were talking about it.
Mhm.
But I mean, the Rockies, you'll take any good history you can get because they've made plenty of the wrong kind of history so far this year. But it was the first time in Major League history a team won on a pitch clock violation, and the Rockies have 5 walk-offs this season. So um, that's actually 5 walk-offs for only having 27 wins is kind of a lot, but it shows that they've had some late exciting games, I guess.
No, and I think the league leader in walk-offs is the Marlins, and they have around like eight. And we're not very far behind. So I mean, that is really interesting. Just kind of tells you how hard it is for us to come across some W's, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, and like we said, they went 1-4 in the 5 games since we've last recorded. They lost the series to the Nationals, ended up only getting 3 wins on the homestand, which none of us had predicted, you, me, nor Aaron. And in Houston, they've now lost double-digit consecutive games there. I don't know if it's 10 or 11. I lost track. But they haven't won in Houston in a long time. And I guess it really, these games, it's been an offensive struggle. Just the last three games, the Rockies have scored 4 runs combined. That's a problem. And I don't really know how to explain to me, and I'll let you analyze it after. It's the Rockies in Houston. They put up 1 run or 2 runs and then 1 run, so 3 runs in 2 games. That's not going to win you very many ball games. I think it's a problem. They don't match up well in Houston because they have a team that's used to such a huge outfield and so many hits dropping. Where in Houston, it's one of the smaller outfields in Major League Baseball, and the Crawford boxes are really close. So you kind of have to hit home runs to score there, and the Rockies just don't hit home runs.
Yeah.
I think that's what it boils down to for me. But what are you seeing with the offensive struggles?
Yeah, we talked about that last episode about the power struggles of the Rockies, just not hitting a lot of home runs. We thought maybe that would pick up, and we could talk about our hot takes, because I think all 3 of us had some guys hitting multiple home runs. But yeah, again, it's just not. There's no power there. When you're getting hits, it's singles, and that's just not going to get it done. Like in today's baseball world, when you get a hit, it has to be extra bases. Otherwise, it's just not of any value. I mean, think about a guy like Elisa Rise, who is a fantastic hitter. He's not anymore leading the league in average. But even when he was, not a lot of people, talking heads, are talking about him. And the reason is because he's a singles hitter, right? For the most part. And that's just not. It's not a sexy part of the game. B, it's not a valuable part of the game. You need to get on base and then have people hit for extra bases. And when you're not doing that, just not going to win a lot of games, and people aren't going to pay attention to you. So the Rockies just aren't doing that right now. And it's a pity. But the positive is like there's some good young talent there that has the potential to do it on a consistent basis. They're just not doing it consistently yet, right? So we just need to keep working towards where people can do it consistently. Tolio, for example, he's hitting home runs, but he's also hitting below 200, right? Goodman, for example, he's hit a bunch of home runs in the last 2 weeks, which is great to see. But you need to do it for a month, right? So on and so forth. So it is a struggle. It's hard to watch, and you're not pitching particularly well. We all know about the bullpen. I don't even think we need to touch that topic. I mean, we definitely can, but we just know how bad it's been. So when you don't have pitching and you don't score runs, it's hard to win games. The only thing that we're doing really well right now is the defensive side of the ball. But when as coaches will tell you, if you do 2 out of the 3 really well, which is defense, pitching, and hitting, more often than not, you can win a game. When you do all 3, you're going to win. But you need to be able to do at least 2 out of the 3, and we just can't seem to do 2 out of the 3. We play defense, but pitching and hitting just is not going very well. So that's unfortunate. However, we do have the White Sox coming up. We'll see what we can do with that. We hope for the best. I'm not super optimistic one way or the other, but you got a chance here to get a couple games, to win a series at least. Like, let's just win a series at this point.
And we'll discuss looking ahead later in the recording the episode here. But I real quick, touching on the White Sox series, that's the only team worse than the Rockies in Major League Baseball right now. And I think if you were to look at the rest of the season, this is the series that you'd be projected to win if you could pick any of them. And so maybe the Rockies can use it as a good pick-me-up from a Houston series that was really it was pretty bad. the Rockies lineup combined to strike out 25 times across the 2 games. And let's see, they totaled 10 hits, but struck out 25 times in 18 innings of work. James, just those 2 numbers.
Yeah. So I'm sure you can probably correct me, but I'm tuning into the Astros game the other day, and the Astros have a pitcher I've never even heard of. I've never heard of this man, and good for him. He pitched almost 7 innings, and he struck out 10 guys. That's insane. I guarantee you on whatever fantasy app or betting app you're on, probably projected this guy at like 4 or 5 strikeouts, and the dude had 10. I mean, that's kind of bonkers to me. Like, there's a lot of really good pitchers in the league that don't get more than 5 in a quality start. And this guy gets 10. So I'm not really quite sure, like, what are we doing as a hitting staff, or like, what is the hitting philosophy, or what are the hitters meetings like? Because it seems like they're trying to do something that they're just not capable of at the moment. And I don't know. I'm a casual fan. I don't want to say I know anything special because I don't. But the product on the field right now, it's not all that fun to watch. There's some really exciting young guys. But again, it's that consistency thing. Like, we just can't consistently have guys put quality of bats together, and it's really frustrating to see. So,
yeah, well, and I'm right there with you. Spencer Arrighetti was the guy that he pitched 7 innings for Houston and struck out 10 guys. And I was with the Rockies media the other day, the Rockies press box, with other people in there. We shared the same sentiment. We were like, who's throwing on Wednesday? We were all like, we've never heard of him. We just don't, the American League is a different thing. The dude has a 5.68 ERA on the season. He's 24. And so with the stuff that we saw against the Rockies, he could turn into quite the pitcher. But this year, he's a rookie. He made his debut in April, and he has a 5.68 ERA, but he carved up the Rockies. And to more of your point about the averages, I'll just read the ones below 220 in the lineup. There's 190, there's 194, there's 206, there's 198, and there's 189. I mean, it's a rough go for the lineup. And I think on the broadcast I heard that the MLB batting average this year, average batting average, the median, I guess, is 264. Oh no. It's I think the average is 264, or no, Houston's leading baseball with the 264 average, which would have been like the average 10 years ago or something. I don't know. It was one of those stats where, like, it kind of blew your mind at how poor everyone's just bought into the launch angle effect.
No, they really have. I mean, if you hit 250, but you hit 20 home runs in the first half, like, that's an amazing season. And that's so weird for me, because I grew up where when I went to games, I immediately look up the scoreboard and I'm looking at who's batting 300, because that was the standard of, like, are you a good hitter or not? It didn't mean you hit a ton of home runs or whatnot. It's like, did you hit 300, yes or no? And that was kind of the metric. And now it's hard for me, because there's so many guys in the league that are hitting 260, 250, 240. But none of that matters, because you're looking at who has the most doubles, who has the most home runs. And, like, Kyle Schwarber is a classic example of this. Last year, what did he hit? Like 210, 220?
Yeah.
But he had so many home runs, right? So when he did get a hit, it was extra bases every time or a bomb. And he's doing even better this year, which is crazy. But it's like, it's so hard for me to want a 210 hitter on my team, even though he hits home runs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, and that's kind of been Michael Toglia. Toglia has not been with the Rockies all that much this year, and he's third on the team in homers.
Yeah, it's not good enough. Like, you need to drop home runs but you also need to hit for average. Like, I would much rather have a guy on my team that only hits 20 home runs during the year, but he hits close to 290. Like, to me, that's a valuable hitter, not somebody that hits 210 and hits 30 home runs.
Yeah.
Um,
It's all philosophy from team to team, but I think the issue is the Rockies don't have an identity right now.
yeah,
And
thank you. I was just going to say that. Like, right as you started talking, I immediately thought this team has no identity or philosophy. At least if they do have a philosophy, they're not fulfilling it, right? Like, there's so many different ways that you can win a baseball game. It doesn't all have to be home runs. It doesn't all have to be 300 single hitters on your team. It doesn't have to all be speed, so on and so forth. Like, at some point, I feel like baseball has to get back to playing small ball when there's such little offense. Like, at what point do you just lean into small ball, you know?
well, and I think with the banning of the shift, like they were supposed to raise all the offensive numbers, and I'm sure they have. Can you imagine what the averages would be like if Cargo was, Cargo's shifts are ridiculous. That they'd almost have 4 defenders on the right side, and because I mean he pulled the baseball with power, and he's a bad example to use because he's such a good hitter. But can you imagine how low the offensive numbers would be without the banning of the shift?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, and I don't know. I mean, Major League Baseball, like, they really want to get fans obviously back into the game. But the only sexy part of the game, like, pitching's fantastic. If you're a true baseball fan, you love that. You love a pitcher's duel, so on and so forth. But, like, casual fans, like, they love offense. Like, they want to score runs, right?
Yeah.
And so when the offense is down, like, it's really hard to get people excited to tune into a game.
No, I'm right there with you, and I think I was talking with a family member earlier today about preparing for this episode and what we'd talk about. The Rockies started this year 8-28, and I feel like these last 5 games have almost been more of a drag because of the lack of offense. And that might just be dramatic and recency bias, but it is early in the year they were losing games that were I guess higher scoring, but it just felt like I don't know. The season they're 80 games in, I think. They're not even at the halfway point, and this season feels long.
Yeah, it does.
Imagine what the players are feeling, you know.
Yeah, it really does. And I was just thinking the other day, like, I'm so excited for playoff baseball, and it's so far away because playoff baseball, like, that's when it doesn't matter if it's low scoring or high scoring. Like, every out, every hit, every strikeout, like, really does mean something. But during this grind of the regular season where there's so many games and you're not scoring a lot of runs, it's a grind even to watch, to even tune in. And it's sad, unfortunately. Like, I don't know any other way to describe it. It's just sad because as a huge hardcore Rockies fan, like, it's hard for me to want to tune into a game. And the only reason I'm able to do it now is, like, I look at the lineup and I look at individual players that I'm excited to watch. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see what Doyle's going to do. I want to see what Tovar's going to do, so on and so forth. But to actually sit through a 9-inning game, it's just like, man, this is tough.
And that's that's with the pitch clock and everything speeding it up. But it also it speaks to the players. I mean, the players don't get enough credit. They play 162 games, and that's truly insane. And we can really appreciate it as we've been discussing here with just watching. You understand the grind. Talking about last week's hot takes. Aaron predicted that the Rockies would go 2-3 and Montero would hit 2 homers. The Rockies went 1-4, and Montero barely got any playing time, which I thought was interesting and at least worth noting. Maybe we could break that down after just finish up talking about the hot takes. We all predicted 2-3. I said Tovar would homer in Houston. The Rockies They were unable to produce homers outside of Michael Toglia in Houston. You predicted that Hunter Goodman would hit 2 tanks. I think he got 1 in that stretch. So you were the closest.
He got 1 against the Nationals, and I was actually watching that, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get my hot take this week. I felt like there was enough time there, but unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition. So,
but I'm so happy that they're playing Goodman. I mean, he's really carving out a role. He's catching more consistently now, and that could just be because Elias Diaz has been hurt, and I gotta think he's close to returning. But I love to see Goodman getting in the lineup, and he had 5 homers in the 10-game homestand, which is crazy. I mean, that's a homer every other night.
Yeah, that's a good week. That's a good week for a ball player for sure. And Goodman's awesome because he can play anywhere, and when he does get up there, he's straight hacking. Like if he does hit something, he's going to hit something hard. I don't know what his batting average was over that homestand, but the home runs alone, are worth tuning in. But again, he's one of those guys where the batting average is so low that he's not being super valuable, right? But the home runs in that span is a great thing to see, and that's what I was kind of banking on, is that he would kind of carry that momentum into this week. We'll see if he can put it together. Again, it's going back to, okay, you put it together for a week. Can you do it for a month?
Yep.
Cool. Do it for a month.
Yeah.
And that's what we haven't seen from seriously any player. Like, we haven't seen anybody. Yes, they might be able to put it together for a game. They might be able to put it together for a week. But nobody on this team has really, outside of Tovar and McMahon, have been able to put it together for a month, right? And that's what you need to see, and that's when you know somebody's made the next step in their development, at least to me.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying, and I got on the pitching side of things. Gomber was so incredible in May. I think I saw the other day he had below a 1 ERA, and seeing what's happened to him in June it's been demotivating because he's getting whacked around pretty good. But yeah, I think we've got a Rhino comment. Besides Diaz, who else would be dealt at the trade deadline? As for the promotions, I've got to think they're coming very, very soon. Very, very soon. You'd love to see Dollander get moved up, especially now that, Amador's gotten a chance at the big league level. You've got to start moving these players up and set yourself up for a 2026, 2027 contention window. That's when you want it to open, right?
Yes, in an ideal world. Now, what the front office is thinking is probably different than what we're thinking. But, you got to look at the players that have value, right? And so Diaz as a catcher, an offensive and a above average defensive catcher, he has some value. So he has some potential to be moved. We do have some depth at catcher with a Drew Romo, for example. That's a young guy that could get some playing time potentially. So Diaz, as Rhino mentioned, he could be a potential piece that you move. Now, will the Rockies do that? That's a different question. But he does have some value that you could get some prospects back and actually lean into this rebuilding process. McMahon is another guy, clearly has some value. He's in his prime right now, though, so you could also hold on to him for a couple of years, and he could be a piece in the rebuilding process still at this point. Tovar has a lot of value. You're obviously not going to move him because you want to build around him, right? Jacob Stallings is a guy that's not known for his offensive ability, but he's shown that he can do it this year. So that's something that you can move now, because if you can, you should. You absolutely should lean into selling him high if that's at all possible. And then the other piece is Rogers. Rogers has an interesting contract situation. he is hitting for average right now. He's not a guy that's hit for power traditionally, but he's a really good defensive second baseman. He has some value, but that's diminished because he's constantly on the IL, right? So had he been healthy all year and hits 280, I think he's hitting 284 right now, something close to that. Had he been healthy and been doing that all year round, like that's immediately the piece that I think you should move because you do have an Amador in the wings, right? But because of the injuries now, I don't know if anybody is necessarily calling for that, especially any contenders that are like, oh hey, we need a second baseman. That's usually not what's happening. Contenders are always looking for one thing, and usually one thing only, and that's relievers. And the Rockies don't have any of those. Just to put it bluntly, like we don't have any relievers that we can move and sell high and get a couple of prospects back. So I'm going to be honest with you and say we're probably not moving anything. The trade deadline is probably going to come and go, and nothing will happen on our side. And fans will be really frustrated by that. But that's what's probably going to happen in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's very, very likely that they attempt to move Diaz. I think him getting hurt has not done the Rockies any favors, both on the field and for his value. Talking about Stallings, I almost think that the Rockies right now are talking to him about coming back for next season because if he's able to be that veteran presence for Romo and he's able to hit at Coors Field, maybe it is just the Coors Field effect with him. I don't understand why you wouldn't. I mean, he's been hitting cleanup for the Rockies this year, and to the tune of a near 300 average, which nobody had on their bingo card. But next year in a perfect world, he's not hitting cleanup, but maybe he's still a veteran presence for Romo, and they can work towards more of a 50-50 split instead of when Diaz was healthy, it was like 70-30 Diaz starting behind the plate. But B-Rod's an interesting case because he's been consistently good and really never great in his time as a Rocky. And that's always tough to gauge because he almost feels immovable, just because of that. Talking about relievers, yes, they are absolutely the most valuable pieces at the deadline. And I truly feel like last year the Rockies were able to move on from Pierce Johnson, who I think was having a worse season than Jalen Beeks has had this year. And Beeks is a lefty who throws really hard from the left side. I do see, and I know his numbers don't look great, but his changeup has been really good for him, actually. His changeup's been the best it's ever been in his career. He's just been throwing the fastball more than ever before. I think there is a world where they're able to move Beeks, and that'll be a trade that, unfortunately, Rockies fans haven't come to love Beeks just because of the ninth inning collapses. But, I mean, that's not only Beeks. That's been across
everybody.
the team. Yeah. I think there's a world where he's moved. They're starting to get a little bit of a jam at starter. They got Kyle Freeland back and moved Ty Block to the bullpen while releasing Austin Kitchen, which was a bummer for us because Kitchen's our guy. But best of luck to him in Miami. When Herman comes back and he's starting in Albuquerque either tonight or tomorrow, when Herman comes back, who's going to kick – who's going to get bumped out to the bullpen again? We already moved Ty Block to the long reliever role. I don't know. What do you think happens with the starters? Because you've got Dakota Hudson in there, and you're not going to. I don't think you take Feltner out. You definitely don't take Kyle Freeland out. You don't take Cal Quantrill out, and you don't take Amber out. So does it come down to what happens to Dakota Hudson?
Yeah, and I don't think there's a lot of pressure to necessarily have a plan with that right this second because those situations turn out to work themselves out organically because unfortunately, somebody else is going to get is going to get banged up. Like there's no reason to sugarcoat it. Like somebody else is going to get banged up in one way or another. So you can never have enough pitching. Like you really never can. So I think it will work itself out. And I can't really predict how it will, but it definitely will. And then now we're talking about leaning into next season in 2026 where you're trying to compete. So you're really just trying to evaluate what pieces you want to make sure are still having opportunities to develop. It doesn't mean that they need to be all-stars right this second, but it's about getting people innings. It's about getting people experience. So you look at your younger guys. So what that means for a Gomber and a Freeland, I don't know. But I think it'll work itself out. Is really all I can say about it. I don't have a good answer for that.
Maybe as you were discussing it, I kind of came up with this. Maybe I don't think Bud Black historically does this, but maybe they move to a 6-man rotation. They build up better, a little bit more endurance, and you rely less on the bullpen, which I think that's a win for everyone. That's a world where
it gives Bud so much more flexibility because if a guy comes in and he's like, I don't know, I threw a bullpen Wednesday and my arm's feeling a little tired. He's like, okay, well, let's sit this one out. Let's set this week out, and you can just kind of rotate people in and out week to week. I mean, it gives Bud a lot more flexibility, to be honest. It puts him in a better situation when it comes to starting pitching.
Yeah. No, yeah. We'll keep an eye on that, and it'll be so good to have Herman back. The other bright spot, other than the win against the Nationals for these past 5 games, they lost on Sunday, but Kyle Freeland, he threw 6 innings, didn't allow a run, and he took a no-hitter into that 6th inning. So he looked really, really good after early in this season. He entered Sunday with an over 13 ERA. That's incredible. But he shaved 4 runs off of it with the 6 shutout innings.
Yeah, I think that time off for Kyle was really beneficial. That start was great, but again, we need to. Can you do it for a month? Just back to that thing. And Kyle's been really frustrating for a while after his near Cy Young season because he can do it for 2, 3, 4 starts maybe, and then the wheels come off. So let's just hope he can hold on for, let's put 10 good starts together. It doesn't all have to be quality starts, but 5 earned or less for 10 straight starts. I think that would be a great goal and something that would give us a lot of hope in his ability.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be awesome. And I guess just shifting ahead, looking ahead to maybe the next time we record, it might get interesting because of the Rockies schedule, but starting tomorrow, they are in Chicago against the White Sox for 3. And then starting tomorrow, they play, I think they play 17 games in a row before the Home Run Derby and the All-Star break. So they got 2 off days and 4 days this week, but then they've got MLB has the Rockies scheduled for 17 straight days of games. So they'll be in it right up until the All-Star break. But like I said, they're playing the White Sox this weekend. Then they'll come home for a 4-game series against the Brewers, leading right up into next Thursday when we normally record on 4th of July. But the Rockies will be playing an evening game. So we'll see what happens there. But what are your predictions for the next 7 games, we'll say?
We go 2-5.
Does that include a series win over the White Sox?
It doesn't. I don't even think that happens, unfortunately. I hate to go negative, but I've trended on the realistic but positive side of my predictions so far, and they've all missed. They've all underperformed. So I'm going to say 2-5 and hope that because of that, they actually outperform my prediction for the first week. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, the White Sox have a winning percentage of 265, lowest in Major League Baseball. Second lowest, Colorado Rockies, 338. But
I bet the White Sox are looking at this series the same way the Rockies are, though. They're saying, okay, one of the
yeah,
bottom dwellers. Let's go get after them. Like let's put it together for one series.
yeah. Well, the problem is it's being played in Chicago, and the Rockies are 11 and 29 on the road.
No, and that's what swayed me is knowing that they're going to be on the road. If they're at home, it'd be a different conversation. But because they were on the road specifically, I just have zero hope, unfortunately. And my mindset right now for all the players and watching these games is like, I just want to see guys play as hard as they can. You don't have to win every at bat. You don't have to win every pitch, but just care and play as hard as you can. And then once we hit the All-Star break, like let's just take a collective breath and focus on the second half and just split the season in that way and say, okay, let's go out and do something really positive in the second half.
Yeah, well, and for just adding to our predictions, do you have any player specific for the next 7 too, so we can keep that rolling?
Not really. Like I don't have anything off the top that I feel like is a hot take that's going to hit. I know I need to pick something though. So,
anyone tossing a no-hitter this week? That'd be a crazy prediction goal.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to put any money on that. But I guess my hot take, I'm going to go with Freeland. I'm going to say he tosses a quality start, gets a win.
Yeah, it would be his first of the year. Good night, Rhino. Thanks for hanging out. And I think for my predictions, I think they're gonna go. I'll say 3-4 in the next 7 games and hope for better, just like you.
Okay.
And for my player prediction, at some point, Nolan Jones has to get going. He has to break out of this prolonged slump that was interrupted by injury. I think he hits 2 home runs this week, and I don't know if they'll both come at Coors Field, but that'd be awesome. I'll be there watching the games, covering it for Blake Street Banter. But I think with those predictions out of the way, unless you have anything else, that about wraps us up. Are we all good?
I have one last comment, and I wanted to say this last week, is that we talked about how Nolan Jones comes out and says, well, I'm a notoriously slow starter. I really hate that. Like as a professional athlete, like you might know that deep down, but like to put that energy into the world and just like that might be reality, but like just to like put it out there and be like, oh well, I'm just a late starter, blah blah blah. Like you got to stop that.
Yeah, curb it a little bit.
Yeah, you just got to stop it. And I don't have anything else to say about that. Like just go get after it, man. Like who cares if it's May or August? Like just go do your thing, man.
Yeah, well, we're here for it. Hopefully he breaks out this week. We've seen his first Coors Field homer last week, so maybe it's bubbling towards brighter futures. The Rockies struggled in Houston. Period. It wasn't just Nolan Jones. So
definitely.
Hopefully hope for better things in Chicago, and then and next week, 4th of July, it'll be a great time, like a baseball holiday built into the calendar. An American holiday at least. But yeah, that's all for me. So if you want to close this out, we can get out of here.
Just love all things baseball. All right, let's go Rocks. Woo!